There's anything tricky, or we're not trying to purposely cause you problems or anything. Just want to give you a chance to say something. Yeah, what's up?
The only suggestion I have is that...
Oh, don't give me any suggestions. I don't want any suggestions on how to do an exam.
Well, when trying to cover 2 essays, for me, one of them would have taken up the entire class period, so it was a little hard to go into detail.
Well, what do you want us to do? You want us to stand on our head and just make it as easy as we can for you? I mean, you know, it has to be a little bit of a challenge there. You do what you can. I mean, I think we made it clear that we marked you on the basis of what you did, and that we would consider, Noel didn't say that, we always usually do say to our classes, if you were writing well and getting your ideas out well, we would consider that you would have continued along the same intelligent level as you started, so we're aware the exam is, time is insufficient. You don't have to. You're like all the modern students, if they're one needs, you're not completely satisfied by all things. Well, someone actually, somewhere along the line, told modern students that they are the ones around whom the processes should be centered. I know I'm a bit of a curmudgeon about these things, but there used to be a time when the students actually had great awe of the professors and teachers, and that seems to have evaporated. So when we don't just roll over and say, oh, you're right, and that's it, we get a look that looks really grim. So I apologize for if I stand in your way of being a little bit less than modern. But honestly, I think that I don't mean to be cruel, and don't take it amiss. Yes, I don't blame you for what you asked. But if I had asked that to my professors when I was your age, I'd have been almost slogged in the head. You say, oh, well, that's just the change. No, I mean, you know, if I had even shown that I thought they weren't doing something, you know, the way it should be done, or something like that, or convenient for me. I mean, it was just beyond the pale. You just never even thought to voice it. You say, well, that's the change in time, and that's a good thing. No, I think that since the Vietnam War era and the protests of the Vietnam War, where the professors basically collapsed under student pressure because I don't know what the reasons for it were, but grades evaporated, standards died. There was an awful lot of unrest, and a lot of people got into the academic business who really were draft dodgers, and people who were only doing it to get out of the process of the horrible political situation we were following. So the standards became very lax. Professors, students all began to cohabit, and it became almost a huge commune in the 60s and early 70s between them. And I don't think that the academic profession ever recovered from that. Go ahead, I'll give you your last word as Bill O'Reilly was.
I'm sorry if my comments...
Don't offend me, I just really surprised me.
Asking for problems.
No, heck, look, we've had these tests for 10 years, so we know students can't finish them. I mean, I appreciate your having expressed it, but that wasn't the problem I was asking. I'm saying the subject matter, basically. All right, you took it as the style of the test. We know you can't finish them. I don't know if Noel told you that we're going to mark you on the basis of how you were performing, and if you didn't get to an end, we didn't expect necessarily that you would get to an end. But if you did say that, well, I didn't get here that morning. I got held up on the freeway, so she should have said that. But anyway, no harm. Sensibilities are tough in this. I've got 4 offspring. One of them lives in New York, and she went away to Europe for a couple of months, and I have another older brother of hers who's in New York and staying with his grandmother, and he wants to live in her apartment while she's away, and she won't let him because she said he's a slob, and you know, and her place will be wrecked and everything. She'll have trouble with her landlord, and he'll have all his girlfriends in there. dead right. And so I have to kind of act like the referee in these kinds of things. I have to look like the one that I'm on their side and I care and I understand their problems, and I have to look to the other like I care and understand. You say, why don't you put your foot down? There's no way you put your foot down, because if you do, you lose both legs. You know, you can't win. So when you get up here, you'll find that it's similar. You know. So, but we do understand these issues, and we are aware that the exam is too difficult in terms of getting it done. However, some people don't find that way. Some people have nothing to say and get through this in like half hour, and others have a lot to say and can't deal with it. So we're aware of that, and hopefully Noelle will take that into consideration when she marks it on the other side of it. If she hasn't, then you go and talk to her, and if you're not happy with her response, then you come to me, and I'll take her to the woodshed. And I don't knee-jerk support Noelle, even though I like her very much as a person. She's only a graduate student. She's not further along than a lot of you in age. She does a pretty good job, but she's drowned with 1,000 or 100 papers or whatever, and that's tough. On the other side of it, she's getting paid for a fairly decent amount of money, so I wouldn't pity her in the sense that she's being exploited. It's something that a lot of students really want to do because it helps them carry on with their education. The state gives pretty good compensation for things. So it's called a graduate assistantship. So in fact, it helps her and helps us. I say, well, why don't you do it, Professor Eisenman? Well, if I did that every time, then I probably wouldn't be able to write the books that some of you know that I have written, and you wouldn't have me, wouldn't be able to say that, oh, I got a class with this guy who writes these interesting books and so on. So you have to measure one thing against the other. I marked those smaller classes, but the big ones, I don't. And the final point about that. I'm actually against these big classes. I was chairman of the Red Studies Department for 15 years, and I always tried to get wider range of classes in a smaller amount, not exploiting through GE categories a given class. These big classes are put here because they force people into certain chicken runs. You have to get a certain class in a certain category. So that causes a lot of people to turn out in a given class because it satisfies a certain requirement. You all know that as well as I do. But I was all for the idea of just letting people study in areas. Take any course they wanted in a given area on any level that they wanted to take it, and stop all this micromanaging of what course satisfies what requirement, which is actually Mickey Mouse. And the course doesn't satisfy any kind of requirement any better than another course would. And it's just professors and committees manipulating student registration amounts so that they can get a lot of people in a certain class and less in another class. It's all manipulation. Has nothing to do with the reality. So I was always against this, and GE is fine, but I would like to say take a certain number of humanities classes, whatever you want. Take a certain number of science classes, whatever you want. Take a certain number of social science classes, whatever you want. You want to take an introductory course, take an introductory course. You want to take an advanced course, take an advanced course. Take whatever you like because you're a big person. You want to take a James Joyce or a Nietzsche class, take that. You know, if you want to take a Buddhism class or a Old Testament class, take that. You know, why, run 100,000 people through this particular class, which is not anything, certainly not better than any other time. What was your point?
I was going to ask you, what do you feel about the current campaign that teachers should all use the same book?
That is would be preposterous.
Save money.
That would be ridiculous. Every teacher is different. That means it's like a high school curriculum. So, we're all, this is what college is, a different kind of personalities. This class isn't a given thing. It's what everyone makes it of it. So if you don't like giving the professor his approach, you go to take another one, I mean, so, oh, that doesn't fit my time frame. Well, oh, that's your problem. But I I would be. But again, look, I'm a Neanderthal. Don't listen to me. You know, I'm from a previous era. We're being packed out to the old sacred camping ground. You know, we're almost done. And that may come into being, what you're saying. But it's all micromanaging. It's committees, the same thing you have on school boards in local areas. It defeats the idea of what a university really is. A place where you come in contact with odd human beings who are called teachers. And it's a personal experience. If you limit them, you've got to cover this amount in a given class. Well, you know, knowledge isn't really chicken run. In sciences, it's possible to do that. And they all do use the same book because calculus has a calculus textbook. You know, you go chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, chapter 4. I guess some of the engineering classes are also like that, and some of the computer science classes. But when you get into history and philosophy and these areas, literature, then anything goes. And I think that's the way it should be, because when I went to college, I went to an Ivy League school, and I have to tell you that I was an engineering physics student. I was total science, you know, and all these classes, casting, working, welding of metals, electromagnetism, advanced calculus, all these things. I've never used one stitch of what I learned in the regular life since then, not one iota. And the most important classes that I took were Philosophy 101, which I just chose to take as an elective, or, you know, European literature, which I chose to take because I was interested in. And it turned out that those things to me meant a lot more than all the other things that I was doing. So, you know, and those were not standardized. You know, the professor came in, if he was an interesting guy, he had interesting books. If he was an oddball, he had weird books. If he was a dull guy, he had dull books. And so the word got around among students who were the interesting people, and students found out. Some of the professors, you know, used to have huge followings. Some, you'd go into their class and there wouldn't be a soul in there. You know, we had a professor you may have heard about. His name was Nabokov. He became a famous literary giant, Vladimir Nabokov. He wrote Lolita and so on. Well, he was so odd as a human being that he just attracted masses of students who went in because they just wanted the experience of being in Nabokov's presence. And it wouldn't have mattered if he taught, you know, tiddlywinks. They'd have poured in there. So that's it. In the humanities, I think you need personalities. And the subject matter, whatever it is that they present you, something good can come of it. Everything is broadening. Everything is like a snowball going downhill and getting more snow. So the more snow you get, there's always more to be gotten, but that's certainly a good start. So yeah, what you say, it's a good question. What about standardizing these classes? Well, if you're going to run them in through chicken runs, yeah, maybe. But I would just say put people in areas, like take a certain amount of literature, take a certain amount of philosophy, take a certain amount of history, take a certain amount of English. You choose the course depending on what you're interested in. And that would be, you know, then these classes would evaporate. You wouldn't have 150 people in a class like this. We have about 8 classes of this particular course. With, you know, and it's probably the worst class that we do. And why should students from all over the campus be exposed to the worst class the department does? I don't think it's a bad class, honestly. At least not the way I did it, but I wouldn't want to take some of my colleagues. So, you know, it just depends. My goal is to keep people away. Anyway, I'm rambling here. But the point is, I think that students should be allowed to go. And I think we should free students up more, not direct them. Whatever you're interested in, that's what you should do. That's what you should find the courses that you like doing. If you like marine biology or something like that, and you like to, you know, dive in the ocean or whatever it is, that's what you should take. You know, and that's what it should be, and that should satisfy whatever the requirement is. Period. I don't know what the requirements there are, and I've long ago given up. Let's go back to Walt Whitman, but thanks for your question. Again, I'm sorry if the exam was onerous. We didn't mean it to be onerous. We meant it to be something that you can just hold forth in. And I'm sure, Noel, if you filled up the book with your thoughts, whether you answered both questions completely or half or whatever, I'm sure that she'll give you credit for that. And if she doesn't, I will. So just come and see me if you feel that you've been badly done by it. And again, I apologize for not marking them. I would like to mark them all, but I'm on a publisher's deadline. I'm already about a year and a half late. My publisher is crawling up my back. This is another 800-page book, and I'm going mad trying to get it done. And I don't know if I'll survive even what I'm trying to do in that area, forgetting what we're doing here. Okay, so now we were talking about Whitman and whether we believed that he had done all the things that he said he had done here. But I think what does come through is someone with a deep religious sensibility. He talks about death, immortality, that there's really no death. He intersperses it with pictures of mid-19th century America. Afro-Americans driving big, huge trays, trappers marrying Native Americans, and even historical events like the Alamo, sea battles. I mean, he's got everything in here, so really it is a song of himself. So let's see. Where did we leave off? Anyone remember what number section we were at before we packed it in last time? Yeah, I thought it was around 18, 20, yeah. So we did section 19, did we? Who goes there hankering, 20, who goes there hankering, rude, gross, mystical mood, we did that? Yeah, we did some of those in this back end. Well, that really, do I take it I would astonish? Does the daylight astonish? Is this poetry? I mean, it's not poetry like Keats. Or, you know, everything rhymed in a cutesy way. I think actually to write this kind of thing, you have to really be very talented. It's a kind of rap, obviously. But I think even rap has more of a regular rhythm and sometimes a rhyme than this does. So I'm not a big expert on rap. So I think that this is really, well, our early bird thing didn't seem to have succeeded because it's being passed around anyway, but I don't know why they evaporated on me for the second one. So we'll do it again next time, you guys. We'll get two. We'll get the early bird. What we're going to do to give the early bird some benefit for being here on time is pass out an early bird roll sheet, maybe from now on, and get that back in by 8:15. Then maybe we'll get another one passed out like 8:45 or something like that.
I got the other one.
Oh, are you here, Noel? I
Yeah.
didn't even see you. There you are. Hey, I thought you'd gone off.
I did for a minute.
Okay, you got the second one? Well,
Yeah.
Did you collect, oh, this is the second one?
Just
Oh,
started
good, good. Okay, sorry, kiddo. Appreciate it. So, did you tell them that, by the way, what I was saying? That you would mark them on the basis of what they produced?
Sure, yeah.
Oh, you did? Okay. So, my colleague here, my young friend, did she tell you that? That she would mark you on the basis?
I remember her saying was that,
We're not trying to, hurt her.
she would like us to write about a page and a half, but that a page would be acceptable.
Well, I could write about 8 pages in the time you had, so God, I hope you wrote more than a page and a half. Anyway, so she's being kind. If you couldn't do 3 pages in an hour and 15 minutes of a little exam sheet or something, I'd be really mystified. But anyway, if a person is going on, you would mark them on the basis of what they handed in.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I told them they can write as much as they want.
Yeah, right. So, and you'll assume that if they're going on and getting into an interesting area, that they didn't want to stop in the middle of something, that you would assume they would continue at the same good pace had they had the time to continue that. So, anyway, that's how I would assume that. Well, so that's how I would see it. But I don't want to get between you two. It's the same like getting between my different offspring. I always come out bad. I can't win. So I'm going to back off this particular subject. And let's hope that you guys can sort it out between each other. And I thought you'd gone though. Okay. Who goes there, hankering gross, mystical news? Who would have written that in 1850? I mean, really? That's really quite an incredible line. I mean, it's hard to believe people would write it in 1950. Nowadays, yeah, but because we have read him that we're willing to talk that way, very few people would have expressed themselves. And how did he know that it was poetry? How did he know that we would consider it to be poetry? That's what I think his genius is. And I think he is a genius here. I think later on he runs down trying to, like I said, all people try to recapture their best moments, like lovers try to recapture their best love moments and so on and so forth. But it never is quite the same as the original thing. And we always see when things start to get canned or trite. And he's trying his whole life, as he said, he's not going to stop his whole life, but he rarely gets a moment like this again. But I mean, just, how is it I extract strength from the beef I eat? What is a man anyway? What am I? What are you? Whimpering, truckling, full with powers for invalids, conformity goes to the fourth and moves. I wear my house I please, indoors and out. And, you know, I'm not gonna bow to anybody. This is quite an incredibly independent statement. Of course, it may be blowing a lot of hot air. But the fact that he puts it on paper, and it does have a certain rhythm and meter to it, and you can read it in a manner that makes it feel that it has a cadence and it has meaning, I think he's succeeded. Why should I pray? Why should I venerate and be ceremonious? What am I bowing down to? I don't see any point in bowing down to these things of the past. You know, I know I am solid and sound. I mean, these are really, again, there's no rhythm here you can plot. It's just the cadence of natural speech in the American vernacular. I know I am deathless. I know this orbit of mine cannot be swept by a carpenter's compass. I know I shall not pass like a child's curlicue cut with burnt stick at night. I know I am august. I do not trouble my spirit to vindicate itself or to be understood. I exist. That is enough. If no other in the world is aware, I sit content, and if each and every one is aware, we read this last time, I sit content. And I know that I exist, basically, and I don't really give a rat if anyone else does. But he's lying to us. He wants you to know. He wouldn't be writing it down. In fact, his whole existence depends on you knowing that he exists. And in that regard, he's succeeded. He has achieved what his goal was. His goal was to make us, you, me, aware of him. Now, maybe you weren't aware of him. You never would have been if I didn't throw him in your face. But people over the generations have become aware of him, and more as time goes on. So he actually succeeded. And this is what he wanted to do. I am the poet of the body, and I am the poet of the soul. I am he who walks with a tender and growing night. Yeah, we did all of this. I am the poet of goodness, but I do not decline to be the poet of evil or wickedness either. What does he mean by evil? He doesn't really mean cutting people's throats like bin Laden or Al-Qaeda or something and sawing their heads off on television, which I would consider to be the lowest of evil, even though those people who are doing it consider they're the highest of righteousness, which is really really odd. And if I had my brothers, I'd hunt every one of those people down like there would be no tomorrow. I wouldn't put up with that for a moment of a big country like this. I'd send you guys out there, and you guys would find these people, and you'd finish them. Because I wouldn't put up with that. I can't believe this country is putting up with anything like that. That's just so low and so gross, beyond the pale. And to bring that back into the modern world is unacceptable. That's how I would put it if I were Mr. Bushy Wushy or Johnny Kerry. But anyway, the point is that he's not talking about things like that. He's talking about mostly sexual, maybe bad eating health habits. That's the only evil he really is aware of that he's considering evil. He's not talking about, cutting people's throats, beating them over the head, stealing from them, putting them in gas chambers, stuff like that. He's not talking about that. And I don't see, so the evil that he's seeing is mostly social evils of one kind or another, or personal sexual issues of marriage and who you're going to sleep with in bed or something like that. So I don't think his evil is much more simple level than what we have to face in our world. And that was a simpler time, it looks like. So I'm the poet of wickedness too. He means the kind of things, if you're a Catholic, you'd probably go to confess in the confessional. That's about the wickedness that he's talking about. So, in 24 then, Walt Whitman of Cosmos, of Manhattan the Sun, and again, turbulent, fleshy, sensual, eating, drinking, breeding, no sentimentalist. And we did this, unscrew the doors, the locks from the doors, unscrew the doors from their jams, and so on. That's where we left off. I speak the password primeval, I give the sign of democracy. So, like George Bush claims to be doing, Whitman believes absolutely in democracy. And his religion is democracy, American democracy. I don't see any other religion here exactly. All the other religions come second to that. That's why I'm doing it, because I think this is, I don't think that Americans believe this. We all have little religions of our own too. But his religion is America. And if you, maybe it's not a good religion, but if you remember 9/11 and the outpouring of things after 9/11, it really did look like what he was talking about. Look at that, for instance, in section 24 in the middle. I believe in the flesh and the appetite, seeing, hearing, feeling are miracles. So these things are not evil, the appetites. We've always heard the appetites of flesh were evil, not for him. His body isn't evil. It's miraculous. Divine I am inside and out. This is the answer to the people who separate the body from the soul and consider the soul good and the body evil. Not him. He doesn't accept, as I said, the Hindu, mortify the body, or the Socratic or Christian mortify the body to release the soul. No. So I think he's more modern in that way. He doesn't get any of his credit that he's due, because I think this is more the way most people actually live their lives today. I may be wrong, but I think so. No one thinks their body is evil. Very few do, anyway. Judging by the gyms that we all have, and people all working out and, toning their bodies and doing all they can to get the thing, moving the right way and avoiding foods that pollute the flesh and so on and so forth. I would say people are totally obsessed with their bodies. They don't consider them low. They consider them perishable, and therefore they want to keep them going in the best way possible. So these old religions don't really measure up to these issues. At least that's what Whitman is saying. And I think many Americans probably, if they were fair and could see into it, would probably agree with him. Not everything about him. Divine I am, inside and out, soul and body. And I make holy whatever I touch or am touched. Anything I touch is holy, or am touched by. And then, that is a line for the ages. You may not agree with him, because you might put deodorant on, but the scent of these armpits, aroma finer than prayer. I mean, who would have said that? You know, how can you imagine someone in 1850 saying that? I think it's hard to imagine, isn't it? How many cultures could produce that? That's what this American culture produced. I think that's an incredible achievement. I mean, I don't happen to agree with him, maybe. I mean, I don't really want to smell his smelly armpits. But he is saying something. He is saying something. I'm not ashamed of my smelly armpits. You don't like it? Tough luck. It's as good as your prayer, you know. This is natural to me. You don't like me? You know, go take a powder, basically. Yeah.
Couldn't he also be using that as kind of a sweat in armpits, the hard work he does? Kind of like
Do you think? I don't get that feeling that he likes to work hard. He's a guy who likes to lean and loaf as he's observing his spirit. He can avoid work. He wants to. So I don't really get that feeling. But if you want to see that, take it. Look, I don't have the final say here. But since you asked me, you know, your view is as good as mine. I would still think that I didn't get that feeling. I just got to hear it. Smell my armpit. And you don't like it? Well, it's as good as anything that you'll find anywhere else, and maybe better, and it's holy as well, because I am holy inside and out. And you are too, not just him. He thinks, he's not just talking about himself, he wants to encourage you to feel that you are worth something, your whole self. And you don't really have to squirt that deodorant on yourself to make yourself acceptable. Not to him. Maybe you feel you have to, but he doesn't think you have to. You stink, he'll accept you. That's okay. You've got bad breath. I mean, it'd be nicer maybe you could do something about it, but heck, if your teeth are, you know, molding and decaying and so on, there's not a heck of a lot you can do about it. You know, that's just the way God made the mortification of the flesh, if you want. But, you know, Whitman's not going to run away from you anyway. Maybe a lot of other people might, but he isn't. He doesn't think you're worse than Rockefeller because your breath smells, or Trump or somebody who got some weird problems himself, I think. Okay, so he goes on. Again, this is a religious poem. I think you'll agree with me. I mean, it's just everything, every line. If I worship one thing more than another, it shall be the spread of my own body and any part of it. And then he starts praising that again. That's just like, this is the poem that Emerson responded to. Translucent mold of me, it shall be you. Shaded ledges and rests, it shall be you. Listen to this poetry. He gets a constant rhythm there. It shall be you, it shall be you, it shall be you. But there's no plotted out rhyme or reason to this rhythm. Firm, and he makes up words. Musculine culture. Who knows what these things mean? But we get an idea. It shall be you. Whatever goes to the tilt of me. Who knows what that means? It shall be you. You, my rich blood, your milky stream, pale striplings of my life, breasts that press against other breasts. It shall be you. My brain, it shall be your occult convolutions, root of wash, sweet flag, timorous ponds, white nest of guarded duplicate eggs, it shall be you, mixed up tussle. He's going on about his sexual self, I think, to some extent here, and other things all mixed together. You sweaty brooks and, yeah, he's really into it there. I don't want to read any more of that. Nor the cause of the friendship I admit, nor the cause of the friendship I take. Anyway. Look at 25, even redresses himself. Whoa! You contain enough. Why don't you let it out? Walt is him. You can read some of this stuff yourself, obviously. Let's see. Look at 26 at the end. I am the cut by bitter and angry hail. I loose my breath, steeped amid honey morphine, my windpipe throttled in flukes of death. At length I let up again to feel the puzzle that we call being. So again, it's all of being he's trying to evoke. 27. I merely stir, press, feel with my fingers, and I'm happy. I have to touch something, and I'm happy.
I touch my person to someone else's, it's about as much as I can stand. And this guy is all totally frustrated. I think you'll agree. All sexed up. You hear that line? I just touch my person to someone else's. It's about as much as I can stand. But honest, don't you think? I mean, he's actually admitting all these things. You say, well, what do we care? We don't want to hear it. Oh, well, he thinks you do. He thinks you do because he thinks it liberates you. Again, it's like that hard talk show host I mentioned. What's his name? That guy that's going to go to the pay radio. What's his name?
Stern.
Howard Stern. And he thinks we're interested in his, you know, sexual, whatever he imagines, his imaginings or whatever it is, whatever that's called. And, huh? Fantasies, yeah, thanks. That's what it was. And I guess he has an audience of some kind, but I think Whitman's a little higher level than that. I mean, he's purposely trying to appeal to the lowest in you, that Stern character. I think Whitman is trying to raise this to the highest in you. So I don't think you're comparable, but, you know, say, who cares what he thinks? Well, I think people do. Listen to this. He goes on about touch. Is this then a touch, quivering me to new identity? My flesh and blood playing out lightning to strike what's hardly different? Straining the udder of my heart with will-hold drip, behaving licentious toward me, taking no denial, depriving me of my best as for purpose, unbuttoning my clothes, holding me by the bare waist. Again, more of this. And then he goes on, you villain touch, what are you doing? My breath is tight in throat, unclench your floodlight. Blind, loving, wrestling touch, sheathed in hooded, sharp-toothed touch. Did it make you ache so leaving me? I mean, he can go on about anything. Parting track by arriving, perpetual payment, perpetual loan, rich showering rain, recompense, richer afterwards. Then he gets down 31. I believe a leaf of grass is no less than the journey work of the stars, and the pismire is equally perfect in a grain of sand, and the egg of the wren, and the tree toad is a chef d'oeuvre of the highest. And then he goes on about nature being perfect. And he lists all those things. And I think, to me, 32, to my mind, is one of the nicest sections in his poem. Now, you obviously can see that I like this poem, even though I read it quite a few times. And my attitude towards it is not like it is towards Castaneda or the Bhagavad Gita. And it doesn't matter what I like. It's just that people have a natural affection for something, like you like the people and others that you don't. But, you know, there's something unique about this. I'm sure more people have liked the Bhagavad Gita and things. You say, well, you're just not giving it a fair shake. I think this man is a genius, even though I don't like everything about it. I mean, I don't think I'd like to spend a lot of time. I'm sure he'd probably smell. I certainly don't want him kissing me on the lips. That was the last thing I wanted to do. But I understand where he's coming from, you know? I understand what he's trying to say. And he speaks to me as an American. From all races. And this is a beautiful section here. I think I could turn and live with animals, 32. They are so placid and self-contained. I stand and look at them long and long. This is the lines that I personally like. They do not sweat and whine about their condition. They do not lie awake in the dark and weep for their sins. They do not make me sick discussing their duty to God. Not one is dissatisfied, not one is demented with the mania of owning things. Not one kneels to another, nor to his kind that lived thousands of years ago. So they show their relations to me. Not one is respectful or unhappy over the whole earth. So they show their relations to me and I accept them. They bring me tokens of myself. He sees that they're no different than him. And I think that. They have evinced them plainly, but I couldn't say it as well as him. In their possession, I wonder where they got these tokens. Did I pass that way? This idea of maybe Hindu eternal recurrence a little bit here. Huge eons ago and negligently dropped them? And so on and so on. He talks about a gigantic beauty of a stallion fresh in response to my caresses. His nostrils dilate as my heels embrace him. His well-built limbs tremble with pleasure as we race round and return. I but use you a minute, then I resign, you stallion. Why do I need your paces when I myself out-gallop them, even as I stand or sit, passing faster than you, space and time? Now I see it is true what I guessed at. What I guessed at when I loafed on the grass. He goes back to his first stanza. What was I thinking? What was I trying to imagine? What I guessed while I lay alone in bed, and again as I walked on the beach under the paling stars of morning. My ties and ballast leave me. My elbows rest in sea-ups. I skirt sierras. My palms cover continents. I am afoot with my vision. So he has his vision, and now he goes on all about American life, particularly natural life, Niagara, buffalo herds, panthers, he's imagining everything. And then, of course, he's got this image in the middle of all this, somewhere, I don't know if you can find it. My right and left arms are on the sides of two friends, and I in the middle, coming home with sun and dark-cheeked bush boy. In Lilacs Last in the Dooryard Bloom, that's going to be the central image. He and two camaradas, with his arm around two camaradas, as they respond to Lincoln's death. Speeding through space, speeding through heaven and stars, speeding amid the seven satellites, speeding with tailed meteors, throwing fireballs like the rest. He's like a space meteor. His being. And now look at this one here, in the middle of this endless section. I am a free companion. I bivouac by invading watchfires. I don't know if you've ever heard the verses of the Battle Hymn of the Republic. I have seen him in the watchfires of 100 circling cabs. They have builded him an altar of the evening dews and dabs. That's a rhythmic poem set to music, but his is the same kind of thing. I am a free companion. I bivouac by invading watchfires. I turn the bridegroom out of the bed and stay with the bride myself. I tack her all night long to my thighs and lips. Did he really do that? No, I don't think so, but that's what he's imagining. I am the man. I suffered. I was there. Then 34, I told you, he gets into historical things. He's only writing this thing maybe in the 1850s, which is about maybe 20 years at the most after the events in question. Can you imagine he's already putting into poetry these great moments of American history that only happened 20 years ago? 20 years ago? What happened 20 years ago? Reagan was elected president or something like that. Or finished his presidency, I can't remember. I guess he was, it was in the middle of his presidency, the Iran-Contra or something was going on. We could write a poem about that in an epic, and we wouldn't think to do that. He's already done it. I know, I tell you what I knew in Texas in my early youth. I tell not the fall of the Alamo, not one escaped to tell the fall of the Alamo. And he goes on about the Alamo and what happened there. And then 35, what's 35? An old sea fight. It's the, I think it's John Paul Jones, the famous creator, supposedly, of the American Navy, who, when he was told that he should surrender, said, "I have not yet begun to fight." All these things are already classics by 1850. Things that now a lot of us have forgotten about, I think, but they were classics when I was growing up also still. 39. The friendly and flowing savage, who is he? Is he waiting for civilization or past it or master? So he doesn't think that an uncivilized person is necessarily uncivilized at all. He thinks that maybe he's gone beyond, ahead of civilization, which is a really unique view to have. Behavior lawless as snowflakes, words simple as grass, uncombed head, laughter, naivete, want of sunshine, I need your bask, lie over. Yeah, he's always lying around in the sun like a lot of us maybe like to do. Let's see. 41. He talks about all the different gods, so he's not stupid. He knows about the past. Jehovah, Kronos, Zeus, Osiris, Mexican, Mexically. every idol and image, Allah, Odin, taking them all for what they're worth and not a penny more, admitting they were alive and did the work of their days. They bore mites as for unfledged birds who now will have now to rise and fly and sing for themselves, accepting the rough deific sketches to fill out better in myself, bestowing them freely on each man and woman. Yeah, they were okay for their time, he says. But he thinks they're like little mites bearing newer fruit for his own time that should fly higher, he thinks. Well, I don't think that's happening. We're still right where he was in terms of these things. But he thinks that things are going to move higher than that. 43, I don't despise you priests all time the world over. My faith is the greatest of faiths and the least of faiths. Closing worship, ancient and modern, all between ancient and modern, believing I shall come again upon the earth after 5,000 years, eternal recurrence, he believes in. Oracles and so on. The Lama, the Brahmin, we've heard. He knows about all this stuff. He's been to the library. He's educated himself. Dancing through the streets in a phallic procession. He knows about the Shastras and the Vedas and the Quran. He knows things. And the Gospel. 44. It's time to explain myself. Look, let's stand up. Let's get this thing finally straight once and for all. Again, I don't know if he does. I'm trying to get to the end of this thing. Where's the end of this thing? Oh, I'm almost there. 45. My lovers suffocate me. My rendezvous at the end of 45 is certain. Appointed, the Lord will be there, and I will wait till I come on perfect terms with the great Camarado. He'll talk about the Camarado again. I tramp a perpetual journey. No friend of mine takes his ease in my chair. I have no chair, no church, no philosophy. I lead no man unto a dinner table. 47, I am the teacher of athletes. The boy I love, the same becomes a man not through derived powers, but in his own right. And this is a beautiful one here. I teach straying from me. If you've ever read Nietzsche, thus spake Zarathustra, that is actually a line right out of Nietzsche. And I think Nietzsche probably took it from him, not vice versa, because he wrote 40 years before Nietzsche. And I'm sure this was translated into German. Bet you that he, in the subconscious, took that line, I keep straying from me. If you know who Nietzsche is, the famous European philosopher of the late 19th century. So I guess we're finally at the end of this 48. So the summing up is coming here. I have said that the soul is no more than the body. And I have said the body is no more than the soul. So here we're getting a final summation. And nothing, not God, is greater than to one than oneself is. Very Hindu there, the self, as high as the Brahman. And whoever walks a furlong without sympathy walks to his own funeral dressed in a shroud. And I, or you, pocketless of a dime, may purchase the pick of the earth, and a glance with an eye or show a beam. He's the man of the open road, the hobo, if you like. On its pod confounds the learning of all time. There's no trade or employment, but the young man following it may become a hero. A little bit of karma yoga there. And therefore, no object is so soft, but it makes a hub of the wheel universe. And I say to a man or woman, let your soul stand cool and compose before a million universes. And seems aware there are a million universes. And I say to mankind, be not curious about God, for I am, again, this is a total religious tract, for I, who am curious about each man, am not curious about God. I hear and behold God in every object, yet understand God not in the least. I think most of us think that too. We see God everywhere, but we do not understand Him in the least. Very universal statement, and I think it's as honest as he can get, nor do I understand who there could be more wonderful than myself. And I also think that I'm wonderful. And I think we all think that too. And I challenge you to tell me that you don't. Why should I wish to see God better than this day? I see something in God every 24, each morning. The faces of men and women. I see God in my own face in the mirror. I find letters from God dropped in the street, and everyone is signed by God's name. And I leave them where they are, for I know that wheresoever I go, others will punctually come. And as to you, death, you bitter hug of mortality, it's idle to try to frighten me. As to you, corpse, I think you're good manure.
But that does not offend me. I smell the white roses, sweet scented and growing. I reach to the leafy lips. I reach to the lost breasts of melons. As to you, life, I reckon you are the leaving of many deaths. No doubt I've died myself 10,000 times before, just like the Hindus seem to feel as it goes on. There is that in me. I do not know what it is, 50, but I know it's in me. I sleep long. Do you see, oh my brothers and sisters? It is not chaos, death. It is from union, plan. It is eternal. It is happiness. And then he says, do I contradict myself? 51. Very well then. I contradict myself. I am large. I contain multitudes. So there's another incredible little line at the end here. I don't mind. Don't tell me I contradict myself. I don't really care if I contradict myself. Don't give me that thing. I am glad I contain multitudes. So one day I'm going to say one thing, the next time I'm going to say something else. Two, you know what, blinking back. That's the way I am, and that's the way the world is. And I'm bigger than having to you worry if I've contradicted myself. And I don't even care if you do think I contradict myself. 52, the spotted hawk sweeps. He complains of my gab and my loiter. He knows he's gabbing and loitering. Same as I know I am doing that with you. I am a bit tamed. I am a bit untranslatable. I sound my barbaric yaw over the roofs of the world. He even makes up a word, but we know what it means, yaw. There's no word in English, yaw, but we know what he means. His yowling, gab. So out of yowling gab, he gets yaw. That's how I would think it. He gets it. The last scud of day holds me back, coaxes me to the dusk. I depart as air. I shake my white locks in the runaway sun. I bequeath myself to the dirt to grow from the grass I love. He picks up the grass thing. If you want me again, look under your boots, the heels of your shoes, your boot soles. You'll hardly know who I am, but I shall be good health to you nevertheless. Failing to fetch me at first, keep encouraged. Miss me one place, search another. I stop somewhere waiting for you. Well, my mind, and I may be wrong, that is probably one of the greatest, even though it's got a lot of cornball junk in it, probably one of the greatest efforts in poetry of the American cultural panorama. And I challenge you to give me one that's even anywhere near as grand. So when you can tell me one, maybe there's some European ones I don't know about, but he ranks way up there with an effort like that. Totally original, totally new outlook, even new for our time, and new rhythm, new way of expressing himself that we now call free verse. Most people who write poetry write like he does now, or some variation of him, because very few people are going to rhyme stuff anymore. They'll do it for fun maybe, but they won't do it except in songs. There's a lot in there that we would not agree with. There are religious ideas that are totally his own. But what finally comes out is love for America, love for democracy, love for life, and fearlessness. That's the best I can do with it. So you say, what should I do with it in an exam? Oh, something what I'm trying to do with it. Do your best. See what you make of it. Quote some lines. Analyze some lines. That's the best we can do with it. There's no final answer. He doesn't think there is one, and I don't think there is. Any question about that one? Let's look at this other one here, Crossing Brooklyn Ferry, which picks up this wait somewhere. I stand somewhere waiting for you. So he's got another one here, which is a great picture of, see if I can find this one. I'm having trouble getting my finger on it here. What section is it in? Do you remember? Oh, here it is, Crossing Brooklyn Ferry, Jim's own section. This is a unified short poem, relatively short. It's not short really, but it's relatively short. It's also a religious poem, which is why I've chosen it. Because we're talking about the religion. What page is in your book?
One,
1 what?
128.
128. It's in
16 in my book. But you've got the Penguin most of you. So. Let's try to look at this one, because the best way to look at what he's doing is read it. And it's hard to read these by yourself. But when you read it out loud, just so much more comes out of it. Okay, flood tide below me crossing Brooklyn Ferry. What's he doing? Flood tide below me. Recently we had one of these ferries crash into the Staten Island dock side and killed quite a few people because the pilot said he was passed out or drunk or on drugs or something or medication, and he forgot to stop the boat. Or I don't know, he wasn't even there or something. And they had a lot of trouble recently. In ferries are coming back, you know. New York ferries are starting to come back. People like the idea of crossing, you know, New York's an island, and people like the idea of coming to work on a ferry boat. You know, it's better than being stuck in traffic on a bridge or in a tunnel that someone might blow up or something. Ferry boat is like you get the fresh air in the morning, and in San Francisco Bay, there's a lot of people coming across from Marin and these places on ferry boats now. It's easier than trying to drive in, or even there's no transportation from some of these areas also. And Seattle and up that way, I mean, the place runs on ferry boats, doesn't it? And there's ferry boats to all the islands and everything. But most of us here haven't been on ferry boats, except down at Newport Beach, maybe. When there's a little ferry boat that goes across that little sort of, how many have been on that little ferry? Yeah, that's about the biggest ferry we have. Maybe to go to Catalina, there's a kind of, you know, not a ferry, but a speedboat of some kind, whatever. What do you call those things that sit up on air? What are they called? Hydrofoil or something. So he thinks that's his mistake. He thinks you're going to be like him. You're going to be sitting at the rail of ferry boats, just like he did 100, 200 years ago. He doesn't understand scientific development is coming, even though he thinks there should be spiritual development. But he doesn't seem to anticipate scientific development that you guys and many of us have never sat at the railing of a ferry boat, or any boat for that matter. How many of you have never sat at the rail of a ferry boat looking out at the sea? Most of you have, so I'll take your word, but I don't believe you. I'm sure about half of you haven't. Anyway, to lean next to, I know just what he's talking about. Again, it's me versus you, and my life experience versus yours. To lean on the rail of the railing of the boat and look down at the water while the boat's moving, it's just something, a great feeling for some reason. God knows why. There's no rhyme or reason why it is. But that's what he's doing. Flood tide below me, sitting at the railing, looking down at the water on the moving ferry boat. Clouds to the west, sun there, half an hour high. Hey, you're smart. What time of the day is it? Good morning or night? How many say morning? How many say night? It's night. He's going home from work. He's looking into the west. The sun is down in the west, half an hour high. It's a half hour before sunset. Hey, I'm the detective, or you guys are the detective here? I can even tell you what month and day it is too when he comes along here. Though it's hard to imagine what day it is, but you'll see it'll come. I see you also face-to-face crowds of men and women attired in usual customs. How curious you are to me. On the ferry boats, the hundreds and hundreds that cross, returning home, are more curious to me than you suppose. Again, he's looking. He's curious. He's always curious about people around him. And you that shall cross from shore to shore, this is his point now. Years hence are more to me and more in my thoughts, my meditations, than you might suppose. I'm thinking about you guys here in this classroom. You don't realize it, but that's what I'm thinking about, he's saying. I'm not saying that. He's saying. And like he's saying at the end of the last poem, I stand somewhere waiting for you. That's what he's going to say at the end of this poem. He wants to hook up with you. He wants to connect with you. And you're going to have to judge if he's done it, because at the end he's going to ask you, have I connected with you? Have I connected? And he thinks he is connecting. You'll have to decide if he does connect. I think, in fact, he does ultimately in some way connect, but I may just be prejudiced. Okay, he starts his little game here in part 2 where he gets his gears moving. He wants to get himself moving. It's like a guy getting up in the morning, getting his blood going. He starts to get the music coming out of his mouth. So I'm just going to read this fast, okay? The impalpable substance of me from all things at all hours of the day, the simple, compact, well-joined scheme of myself, disintegrated, everyone disintegrated, yet part of the scheme, the similitudes, making up his words of the past and those of the future. I don't care what he means. Let's just hear the sound of it. It's like music. The glory strung like beads on my smallest sights and hearings, on the walk in the street, the passage over the river, the current rushing so swiftly and swing with me far away, the others that are to follow me. The current now is also the current of time, like in Buddhism, the current of life, the current of existence, the ones coming before me and after me. The others that are to follow me, the ties between me, so the crowds on the ferry boats represent that crowd too of time passing. Me and them, the certainty of others. Others are coming like I am here. The life, the love, the sight, the hearing of others, all this he's packed into this thing. That's one sentence and he's packed all that in there. I got it, I don't know if you did. Others will enter the gates, and here he's picking up on that theme, of the ferry and cross from shore to shore. In Buddhism, the ferryman is the Buddha, and the crossing the stream of existence is the ferry boat man. He's aware of that, I think. Others will watch the run of the flood tide. And this is his genius, his rhythms. Because this whole rhythm here is centered around what? The word others. Others, 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 others. Repeated over and over and over again. And that someone, I don't think anyone ever really did that. Others will watch the run of the flood tide. Others will see the shipping in Manhattan north and west, and the heights of Brooklyn to the south and east. Others will see the islands large and small. Doesn't matter what he says after the others. Could be any image that comes into his mind. The rhythm centers around the repetition of the word others. 50 years hence, others will see them as they cross. The sun half an hour high. Again, you know it's half an hour before sunset. 100 years hence, so many 100 years hence, others will see them. What a joy, here it is, the sunset, the pouring in of the flood tide, the falling back of them and the tide beneath the boat as it crashes along. So he talked about time and place, and you and others coming and feeling what he felt. He didn't realize that you're not going to feel that. Although maybe more now you will. My father actually used to take me to his work in Manhattan when I was young. He lived out in New Jersey. And we used to take the ferry boat because it was quicker in some regards than to take the tube or whatever it is they used to take under the river, and it wasn't stinky and smelly. It was incredible, even though it was winter and there was ice on the water, and you're bundled up in an icy blast coming down the Hudson River and so on. Just to get out on the deck of the ferry boat as it crossed Hudson River, the huge river, the unforgettable experience. So obviously, of course, this speaks to me, even though he's on the other side of Manhattan. He's not coming across the Hudson River, which is really a big river, but going across what's called the East River, where the Brooklyn Bridge is now. And I can draw a map of Manhattan. I'll do that next time, but we don't have enough time, so I'm going to hurry here. So maybe it speaks more to someone who's actually been on these ferry boats like I have. It avails not time nor place, distance avails not. I am with you, you men and women of a generation, or ever so many generations hence, and he was like 100 years before me, and 150 years before you guys. Just as you feel when you look on the river and sky, this is his connection. I felt. Of course, you aren't on the ferry boat rally, but all of you say you have been there. So he's saying, when you, just like you're feeling, don't forget, I was there too. Just as any of you is one of the living crowd, I was one of the crowd. Just as you were refreshed by the gladness of the river and the bright flow, I was refreshed. Just as you stand and lean on the handrail, again the just now, yet hurried with the swift current, I stood yet was hurried. Just as you look on the numberless massive ships and the thick steam pipes of steamboats, he thinks it's going to stay like that, sailboats and steamships. I looked. I too, many and many a time, crossed the river of old. He changes his rhythm. Watched the 12th month seagulls, saw them high in the air, floating with motionless wings. Let me stop there a minute. What time of the year is it? December. How do we know it? Well, 12th month seagulls. So it's now December, a half an hour before sunset. But what kind of day is it in December? It's like an Indian summer, they used to call it. It's almost like a summer day. It's one of those mild days in December when the sun is out, and it's just a beautiful, almost summer day in the middle of December. I'll hurry here and then I'll let you go. Let me just finish this seagull stuff. Floating with motionless wings, oscillating their bodies, saw how the glistening yellow, now he's going to describe the seagulls for you. Lit up parts of their body, left the rest in strange shadows, saw the slow wheeling circles. This is he's at his high point now. There's nothing corny in this poem at all. He's got his style totally down, and this is like a perfect poem in his map. And the gradual edging toward the south, saw the reflection of the summer day. Now it's saw. The previous one was just. Now it's saw. Saw the reflection of the summer. You want to learn how to write poetry? Read Whitman. Don't read Longfellow. Saw the reflection of the summer sky in the water. Had my eyes dazzled with the shimmering track of beams. Looked at the fine centrifugal spokes of light around the shape of my head in the post-sunlight of the water. Looked on the haze of the hills southward and southwestward. Looked on the vapors that flew in the fleeces tinged with violet. Looked toward the lower bay to notice the vessels arriving. Saw their approach. Saw aboard those that were near me. Saw the white sails of schooners and sloops. Saw the ships and anchors. The sailors at work on the rigging, the round mast. Here it gives you an absolutely incredible picture of New York Harbor in 1850. 5. You don't even need a camera. He's giving you a total snapshot of his time. And what about this seagull? Have you ever seen seagulls following boats that you've been on? They do. They kind of hover above the boat in the breeze. How many have seen that? And you can't help but be attracted to them. They're so perfect. They're so sleek. Their bodies are so absolutely perfectly tuned with their glide, and they're just hovering there on the wind, and you see the yellow under their wings. And he's describing it all perfectly to you. And also, of course, this isn't our world, but his picture of New York at sunset and the commuters going forward. I think he's going to Manhattan here, not from Manhattan, as I think. I've been around Manhattan on some of these tourist boats, the Circle Line. How many have taken the Circle Line around Manhattan when they were toured that place? It's fun to do. I recommend it. In any case, look at here, line 8. The seagulls oscillating their bodies in the hay boat in the twilight and the bladed lighters. What gods can exceed these that clasp me by the hand, with voices I love, call me promptly and loudly by my nighest name? What he's going to do is try to establish a relationship and a connection with you. He's going to say, we've made a connection, we understand, and there's something between us, but next time we'll see the end of this, and next time we'll read Lilacs Last and Joy Our Blooms, and we'll finish Walt Whitman next time. After that, you got to bring